are the factor that unites us as Ugandans and are the factors that create the Ubuntu spirit in our midst as Ugandans. Now, welcome back from yesterday's first day first day of the Pearl of Africa Tourism Expo 2025. Beautiful day it was, but also yesterday the Uganda Tourism Board new CEO, Juliana Kagwa, was named, replacing Lily Ajarova, who is now a senior presidential advisor, having served as UTB CEO since the year 2019 in January. Good news there. But for now, good morning, Uganda. Good morning. Once again, my name is Julie Nantaba-Musisi, and I am with Robert Chirabo Nyonyintono. Good morning, Robert.
A lovely morning to you, and of course our viewer. Thank you very much for waking up with us. It is a bright Thursday, I must say. Of course, in some parts of the country, I'm told it has rained a bit. So if you're there and it is raining, or there was a bit of some pour down, I hope if you're in rural settings, there's something that you're going to plant this morning.
Right.
When you wake up, after watching Good Morning Uganda, please make sure you go to the gardens and you plant something. Julie, there's something I feel I must talk about and remind Ugandans.
Right.
Just to let the public know that we have in place what we call the Traffic and Road Safety Express Penalty Scheme for road offenders. Now, this took effect on Tuesday this week. Now, for you who is using the road, you must be very careful, because previously you had so much time to pay that express penalty ticket, and the surcharge that it attracted was not a 50%. But now, in case you're issued with an express penalty ticket, it's called express penalty scheme. But in case you're driving and a traffic officer issues you with a ticket, you must pay that within 72 hours. Within 3 days. After those 3 days have expired, it will attract a surcharge of 50%. And also remember, the fines were revised, and there are crimes or traffic offenses that were previously not in the law. For example, if you're sitting on a motorcycle, you're a passenger and you don't have a helmet or a crash helmet, if gotten, you pay 40,000. or dance the tune of imprisonment. Now, any child below the age of 12 is not allowed. It is an offense for you to have a child 12 and below occupying the front seat of your car. It could be a taxi, it could be your private car that you're driving. Any child below the age of 12 must be in the back seat. And any child below the age of 5 must sit behind of the car, not in front. Any child below the age of 5 must sit behind in what we call car baby seats or restraints. I hope you've seen these. Many people have these cars and there's that special seat for the baby. So you don't just put this child behind in the back seat. No, if they are below 5, they must have that restraint. Why? Because in there is a seat belt. They sit in the car and there's a seat belt. Because when we've seen some accidents, usually these children, because they are young, they don't have that size of a seat belt, and they're literally very young. Now, when an accident happens, they just fly out of the windows. They are hurt severely because for you, the adults, you've belted yourselves. So in case of anything, the seat belt is going to hold you. Or sometimes you have these kids on your laps, and they'll just fly through the window. So they are no longer allowed these things of saying muture mabega, and you park them there. When the traffic officer stops you and they tell you to put down your windows and they look inside and you have this 3-year seated, 4-year, brother, it is a crime. Now, I'll be giving you each day. I want Ugandans to be well versed with these issues. So every day, today we've been looking at children 12 Tura mabega. Below the age of 5, you must have that restraint where this child is seated and they are belted. And remember the ticket now. You'll have to pay it within 72 hours or it will attract a surcharge of 50%. If it was 100, now if it gets 50%, you're going to pay 150. 50. So you will be in for it. Well,
Right. I cannot wait to see the police report 2025, especially in regards to road accidents, because a lot of measures have been put in place as early as now to see that numbers and statistics are reduced in regards to road accidents. Robert, let us have a look on what's on the local scene.
well, let's begin with His Excellency Kaguta Museveni on the Wealth Tour that is in Greater Luweero. Now, President Kaguta Museveni has congratulated the Parliament of Uganda for standing firm and strong during Tuesday's 20th May 2025 parliamentary session, where Parliament approved the UPDF Amendment Bill 2025. According to President, the move is a step forward in the strengthening stability of Uganda amidst weak civil justice system and political indiscipline. Museveni was on the second day of his wealth creation visit in Greater Luweero, where he addressed the regional leaders from Greater Luweero. President Kaguta Museveni ordered fresh investigations into the Parish Development Model (PDM) funds in Luweero following alleged disappearance of approximately 40 million shillings. The President's directive comes after a tip-off from a Luweero-based journalist during a media briefing held at the Luweero State Lodge. Despite Parliament's passing of the Uganda People's Defence Forces Amendment Bill 2025, a section of people maintained that the bill needed more consultation. It is believed that the public needed to be sensitized to appreciate the spirit of the bill in order not to deem the bill proposed new legislation as bad law. The UPDF Amendment Bill 2025 was passed by Parliament, chaired by the Speaker Annette Among, on Tuesday this very month. And yeah, meanwhile, the National Unity Platform, NUP, has vowed to challenge the newly passed UPDF Amendment Bill in courts of law. This was revealed at the party headquarters in Makere Kavule on an event to welcome new members into the party. Moving on, all efforts to secure bail for retired Dr. Kanokiza Besigye and co-accused Haji Obedi Mutale failed following the absence of the trial magistrate in the case. Besigye and Mutale, through their legal team, had wanted court to release them on a mandatory bail following the expiry of the 6 months mandated by the Constitution to be jailed without committal to the High Court. Retired Kanokiza Besigye accused Abedi Lutale and a UPDF officer, Captain Olaro Charles, appeared at Nakawa Chief Magistrate's Court for the mention of their case. The three are accused of treason. The court, fully packed to capacity with relatives and friends of the accused, prosecution led by Richard Birivumbuka, informed their intention to amend the charge sheet before committing the accused to the High Court for full trial. The prayers were immediately objected by the accused's legal team. They asked court to release the accused on a mandatory bail on grounds that time stipulated in the Constitution to be on remand expired. However, since the presiding magistrate Esther Nyayodie was not around, Magistrate Jonathan Tio, who presided over the case, was unable to hear the accused's argument. For lack of option, Magistrate Tio adjourned the case till the 29th of March till the 29th of May 2025 formation. Lawyers also expressed concern over the prolonged detention of the accused for now 6 months without committal. Unlike other court sessions, the accused's legal team was allowed to access him and share some messages. And finally, from the local scene, the Minister of State for Internal Affairs, General David Muhoozi, urged security agencies to uphold the spirit of patriotism by addressing key offenses that pose a threat to national economy and security. General David Muhoozi was at the pass-out ceremony of 403 senior officials at the Police Development Center in Kawanda, emphasized the negative impact of unprofessional crime detection and policing. He urged the security agencies to take the lead in promoting patriotism by practicing indiscriminate policing and strategic deployment. Muhoozi called on investigative arms of the police to intensify efforts aimed at crimes that threaten national security and the economy. The minister also upheld top officers for conducting the one-month-long training which joint departments of investigations to effectively respond to the evolving crime landscape. The minister urged the newly graduated officers to uphold professionalism and strengthen interagency command and cooperation. The Director for Criminal Investigations Department, Major Tom Magambo, highlighted that the training of 403 CID officers focused on enhancing tactical capacity, community investigative policing, law enforcement, constitutionalism, and good governance. To address the existing manpower gap, the Uganda Police plans to scale up recruitment and reallocate resources to support the forthcoming elections. And with that, we come to the end of our local stories.
Thank you, Robert. And quickly looking at what is on the foreign scene, starting off with Benjamin Netanyahu, the entire Gaza Strip will be under Israeli military's control at the end of its latest offensive. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said in his first conference news since December, setting out maximalist conditions for ending the devastating war on the besieged Palestinian enclave. Hundreds of Palestinians have been killed in relentless Israeli bombardments across Gaza in recent days, at least 82 since dawn Wednesday, as starvation takes hold and only a small amount of aid trucks is allowed. Netanyahu also said yesterday that if there is an opportunity for a temporary ceasefire and hostage exchange deal, Israel will be open to it. The Israeli leader laid out the following conditions for ending the war: the release of all captives, the disarmament of Hamas, the exile of its leadership, and the possibility of carrying on a plan outlined by the United States President Donald Trump in February that would expel Palestinians from Gaza. Trump had said the U.S. should run Gaza and transform the territory into a Riviera of the Middle East. This is the first time Trump's plan has been mentioned by Netanyahu as one of the conditions to halt fighting. And staying with matters Trump, the administration of President Donald Trump has begun the process of ending the federal government's involvement in reforming local police departments, a civil rights effort that gained steam after the deaths of unarmed black people like George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. On Wednesday, the United States Department of Justice announced it would cancel two proposed settlements that would have seen the cities of Louisville, Kentucky, Minneapolis, Minnesota as well agree to federal oversight of their police departments. Generally, those settlements, called consent decrees, involve a series of steps and goals that the two parties negotiate and that a federal court helps enforce. In addition, the Justice Department said it would withdraw reports on 6 other local police departments which found patterns of discrimination and excessive violence. The Trump administration framed the announcement as part of its efforts to transfer greater responsibility towards individual cities and states and away from the federal government. Staying with matters Trump, but still coming back to the continent, a meeting meant to soothe tensions between the U.S. and South Africa instead spiraled as President Donald Trump put his counterpart on the defensive with claims that white farmers in his nation were being killed and persecuted. On Wednesday, a week after the U.S. granted asylum to nearly 60 Afrikaners, a move that rankled South Africa, President Cyril Ramaphosa visited the White House to reset the country's relations. Instead, Trump surprised Ramaphosa during a live news conference with widely discredited claims of a white genocide in South Africa. He played a video showing an exhibit during a protest of several crosses lining a road, claiming they were burial sites for murdered white farmers. Trump said he did not know where in South Africa it was filmed. The crosses, in fact, are not actual graves, but appear to be from a 2020 protest after a farming couple was killed in KwaZulu-Natal province. Organizers said at the time they were an exhibit representing farmers killed over years. Before Wednesday's White House meeting, South Africa's leader stressed that improving trade unions with the U.S. was his priority. South African exports into the U.S. face a 30% tariff once a pause on Trump's new import taxes ends in July. Wow. Matters that will always surprise you. And Robert, let's have a look at what's in the dailies quickly.
Well, a very interesting headline, I must say, on the New Vision, the front page of the New Vision. Nursery schools to open at 8 and close at 5:30 midday. Now tell us why you pick them at 4, at 5, yet opening. Now details of the new guidelines to enhance quality of education countrywide. Well, you should interest yourself if you own a school, what these guidelines say. Now, Pearl of Africa Tourism Expo opens. And in the New Vision also, UPDF bill, how offenders will be penalized. We also look at over 230 tenders for you there in the New Vision this morning. Quickly to the Daily Monitor, Saleh. We will tame Muhoozi. And there's a picture of General Salim Saleh and General Muhoozi Kainerugaba. Now, the lizard comes in relation to that, and he says, but where? With a big question. We will tame, Muhoozi says Saleh, and the lizard is asking, but where? Now moving on, how new UPDF law pits power against justice. And there is also those interested in vehicles, of course, 7-seater SUV making a case for itself. Museveni brings good news for market vendors. What is the news for the market vendors there? The Daily Monitor has more of that. Let's fly to Kenya and Tanzania.
Right, in Kenya, the headline there is how spying deal split Ruto men. And another story in there is where is my husband, Mwangi's wife pleads. Also, in the Daily Nation, revealed NSSF lost workers billions in corrupt treasury bond trades. Now, you can get yourself copies of any of the papers whose headlines we've perused through. But for now, that's it from the dailies. And Good Morning Uganda takes a short break with a throwback from Rema Namakula Atuse.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Uganda, for you who's watching us via live stream or cable TV, you are welcome. Thank you so much for choosing UBC TV, here to inspire you. My name is Julie Nantaba Musisi, and once again, Good Morning Uganda. A happy Labor Day to you. Thank you so much for working, and you are highly appreciated for your contribution to national development in your individual capacity. Thank you so much for choosing to work. Thank you so much for choosing to develop your nation, Uganda. And this year's theme is industrialization, trade, and decent work for social justice. Now, Uganda shall be celebrating its Labor Day from Nakapiripirit, and the guest of honor is His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. Our team is on ground, and we shall be taking you there in a little while for you to catch up with the celebrations in case you are not yet able to do. One thing I wonder is if he will talk about the issue of minimum wage, which is a stark burden for Uganda. But also elsewhere in Africa, Mali's military leader, General Assimi Goita, has won the backing of key political players and allies in being president of Mali until the year 2030? Well, that's a story that we shall delve deeper into in just a bit. But once again, good morning, Uganda. And I'd like to be the Pope. That's not my statement, though. It's by President Trump. Good morning, Robert.
A lovely morning to you, Julie. Happy Labor Day.
Happy Labor Day to you, too. Weren't you shocked when I said that I'd like to be the Pope?
Trump is Trump. And very active.
Yes.
On social media platforms.
He knows how to use his socials.
He knows how to use. And of course, some statements don't come as a surprise to Trump.
Well, just before you get emotional about it, this he said as a joke, and he said it after he was asked who he expected to be the next Pope, just in case he came from the United States of America. And he joked about it and said, I'd like to be the Pope. That was Trump for you. But once again, good morning, Robert. Thank you so much for being here. Do you intentionally celebrate Labor Day?
First, I'm always at work because it's a public holiday. So I'm always at work here trying to ensure that we fulfill our mandate as a national broadcaster to keep Ugandans very informed of what is happening. But why I celebrate Labor Day? Very importantly, and Ugandans should know, that this is not just a day, but it's a day that costed lives of many workers. Now, it all goes back to the 19th century, where we saw over 400.
Cozy out with MTN voice bundles. Call all networks. Kubei Dondoro. Buy a 25-minute voice bundle for only 1,000, or buy any daily voice bundle of your choice. Dial *100 *21# and select daily, or use the My MTN app. When we talk together, we are unstoppable.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning, Uganda. Thank you so much for being on UBC TV. Time for The Real, where we get to engage in a conversation with you on the other side. So there is a number that you get to engage in order to be a part of that conversation, 0709 602 592. Now, the Electoral Commission and the Equal Opportunities Commission have expressed concern over low voter turnouts during general elections and are seeking to address this particular issue. Now, over the recent years, for example, in the year 2021, during the general election, Uganda registered, that is the Electoral Commission, registered over 18.1 million Ugandans as registered voters. However, only had 10.3 million cast their ballots, which is about a percentage of 57.2%. And in 2016, the Electoral Commission registered over 15.2 million Ugandans as registered voters, but only had 9.8 million voters cast their ballots, which brought it to about 67.6%. Yet the government actually spends a lot of money. This year alone, the government is expected to spend about 800 billion Uganda shillings on the whole exercise of the 2026 general election, and most of the budget going to printing ballot papers, which shall be printed from outside Uganda. So this morning, what we are talking about really is the issue of low voter turnout. Why is it like this? Robert, are Ugandans that disillusioned about politics? Why the low voter turnout?
Well, first, there are a number of factors. And very important is, first we should ask ourselves, do Ugandans know? Because participating in an election in Uganda is voluntary.
Right.
You're not like some countries, I'm told, where it is a must. And they will follow up, why didn't
For example?
Why didn't you participate in an election?
Right.
Now, here in Uganda, I reserve my right. I reserve my right to contest. I reserve my right to go and vote. If I don't want, I don't want. And you can't compel me for not voting. Now, do Ugandans know why they should vote? That is something that is very clear. Why they should vote. Julie, Does a Ugandan know that it is my obligation? It is my right. Why I should participate in selection of my leader? I want to tell you, many Ugandans are not aware of that. But now, how do you best explain?
Aware in what sense? The sense that they are supposed to vote, it's their right?
I said one, there are those that they don't, it's not something they take like...
It's not a responsibility on their
it's not
hearts.
a responsibility. If I've voted, I've voted. If I've not, the others will decide. But the big question here that is also bothering me, a person who goes ahead to register,
Right.
he's moved from his home, he has gone, he has registered to become a voter and then doesn't turn up. That is subject to looking at why. Because the other one who has not registered, that one we shall leave. We shall sensitize them, they'll get there. But we are talking about in 2021, where you registered 18 million Ugandans, 0.1. They did register. And those who cast their vote are 10.3. That is 2021. 10.3, meaning only 57.2, if the math is right, did vote in percentage. Now, you can't tell me this other remaining percentage. Registered, they were prepared, but they did not vote. These are factors. One, the political landscape prior to voting either encourages people to or not to vote. What am I referring to? When we look at sometimes the violence that surrounds the campaigns, some people are intimidated. We've just had an election, a by-election in Kawempe. There are people who could have been beaten. There are people who could have been imprisoned, maybe. There are people who witnessed that, and now it goes back to the fear they have that, I will not go. Supposing things happen like they did happen. Sometimes the campaign trails, you know, tear gas, beating, this, that. Violence intimidates voters and they may not turn up. Violence deters voters completely from not coming up. Then also on the voting day, some Ugandans have not appreciated and understood the heavy deployment. In my line of duty as a journalist, I've covered elections. But there are some areas you get to, some they could be hotly contested. I was in Sembabule. And I want to tell you, Judy, I saw the deployment. The previous election that had, I think, Sodo and Shats. My God. And this was in a rural setting. Now, for you in Kampala, you may be used to presence of, because today you're moving through Parliament, I mean the road near Parliament, you see this deployment.
Right.
But there are people in the villages where these deployments, to them, seeing a man, you can't see the face. They have mastered themselves, you're only seeing this. They have a gun, you watch it, you saw in movies. These, one will just come back and say,
Robert,
so people do not appreciate. But also we must understand the disorganization or the lack of sensitization. For example, many registered voters on the polling day fail to allocate their polling stations. Remember, every time we are going for elections, we have those that are merged and those that are created. Now, some may not go to get their voter slip. So, Julie, you're going to come and say, I voted at UBC polling station. And you're ready to vote. But you are transferred from that polling station to maybe National Theatre. But they're all in UBC village. You have a polling station at UBC, you have a polling station at National Theatre.
Right.
So when you come, you line up in the queue, and you reach there and you're told you're not here. Julie, if they tell you, maybe go and check National Theatre, for you, maybe go and check, where there's this, Crested Towers. Remember, lines are there. So you may just move away. But also, we've had issues where a number of our elections have ended in court. Now, when an election ends in court, believe you me, whether justice is delivered, there are those that may not feel justice enough, and they may feel that the elections have lost meaning to them because the candidate of their choice was defeated and went to court. You know, you go to court when you're dissatisfied.
Right.
So there are many that now believe nebwe tulonda era waffe tajja kuwangula ebinaavaayo si byebyo. But they don't have the right facts, because if I'm defeated, I'll use the Kawempe by-election. That if, for example, Nalukola supporters believe he won, now Farida Nambi goes to court and she has a following, she got her votes. Now, if Farida Nambi's people still believe that they were rigged or the polling stations, now when you go back to Kawempe, they will tell you, even if we vote or we don't vote, you will have those people who have gotten now fatigue and have lost trust in the electoral system of this country and the democracy of this country. Whether they are losing trust because they have the right information or wrong, they have lost trust, they are fatigued, and they will, much as they register, when at first they register, think they'll participate in the election. But then when they look and peruse through, they're like, But that depends. You may say the elections, you don't have value for them, when actually you don't have the right information, or you're misled, or they could be right.
All right, Robert, based on that very point that you've just ended your submission with, even the submission you had of people are lax, you know, they don't care if they voted or not. Let's talk about civic education. How do you think, how effective do you think it's been, and it always has been, or should be, for the during the whole election process until the general election? Has it even been that effective in the past years?
I want to say we've not done civic education.
Right.
We've done voter education. No, these two are different. Now what happens is we've put out posters showing people how to vote.
Right.
Electoral Commission will run adverts everywhere. Government, when you vote, tick in the box. Let this tick not exceed. Do this. But civic education is not just about what a voter is going to do on that day, not to have invalid votes. It goes on sensitizing people on not telling them vote this person, but why they should participate in the election, why it is their right to be part of the decision that brings the leaders. Who is fit? Civic education goes to that. Who is fit to be a leader? Why you're electing that leader? Who is fit? For example, civic education makes the public know, if we are voting for a member of parliament, who should be a member of parliament? What does the law say? What does a member of parliament do? No, they won't tell you vote for so and so, but so that the citizenry, when I'm going to vote for an MP, I know this person is not, I'm not voting for him to pay school fees for my children. I'm not voting for him to go and have a contract with a carpenter in the constituency that every person who dies, we can't get a, is it called a coffin, a casket? You know, I'm not voting for this person to make wills for us. Now, because of lack of civic education, I'm not voting for this person to go in parliament and overthrow a government. You're not going in parliament. You're going to do the legislation bit of it. You're going to look at appropriation of the budget. Well, you can do the lobbying for us, your constituency, because your leader have connections. But these are not the prime roles. So civic education in Uganda, we do not have it. If there is, it's just a drop in the ocean. And that's why our people are voting the people they are voting into power. They're ignorant. That's why they're easily bribed, and they bribe them and they vote. Because you can give me money and I eat it. And I don't vote for you. Though that also I don't really feel it's a bit Let's deny the money, let's not give the money. But where you see that a person will tell you, "Gwefunafunyi sente ez'okugula abalonzi," that means these people are ignorant that when I give them sugar, when I give them a jerrycan of waraj, crude waraj, they will vote for me. It should be because they are informed that even when I give them this jerrycan and I come telling them, "For me, when you vote for me, I'm going to tarmac this road," they will say, "Now look at this one deceiving us." And member of parliament doesn't tarmac roads. I'm going to build schools in this constituency. Those are not your roles. We want to look at your capacity to read the law. On Tuesday, I saw members of parliament when they were debating the UPDF amendment. But the question I had at the back of my mind, how many of these MPs have read the content? And I'm serious. How many have read the content, understand what is part and parcel, what is contained here, and can oppose it properly? Can read, interpret, understand, stand on the floor and debate. No wonder you have about 500 and so, but very few are shining out. In my line of duty, I want to tell you, Judy, I've hosted political talk shows on radios. I've hosted members of parliament, some, not all, maybe even there are few. And there is a bill coming to parliament. As a journalist, you read clause by clause because you're going to interview this person. Have him on set, begin asking what is inside there.
And they don't know.
They don't. They just have petty things. Now, because of lack of civic education, we bring people in places of leadership for the wrong purpose. So and so built a school, a message,
Let's look at who is voting. Who is voting and who is not. And let's start with the youth. Statistics show that for example, Western Uganda alone in 2021, only 15% of youth participated in voting. And 17% of the youth in Uganda altogether have actually never attended any form of voter education. But altogether, there is 18 to 21 years. That is about 4.6% of the youth have voted so far in Uganda. And 30 to 35, 95% of them have voted in Uganda. Let's talk about the youth and their voting culture. Are they less engaged? We've seen stories of youth being quite less engaged in the past years, except last year and last general election, 2021. Youth were quite more involved. But what do you think causes this? Yet Uganda is what, 75% of youth are below 30 years and below, and they're the very people who need to vote to make a move, to make a statement, yet less engaged.
Now, these are the facts. Youth are very active in our politics. However, they are not pulling shots in our politics.
What does that mean?
Youth are very active. If you have a rally, they will be there. They will make the noise.
Right.
They will shout, you will even manipulate them. They are the ones who throw the stones for you against the other camp. They're the ones who will do the abusiveness, because that's how our politics we've termed it. You must have some knowledge of serious abusing and abusing those things that hurt the opponent or shame the opponent. Now, when it comes to decision making and occupying places of leadership, they are not there. There are very few, except for ring-fenced areas. What does that mean? People usually want to vote someone they associate and connect with. Our politics has been tailor-made, that we are leaving out the youth every day. Let me give you an example. The NRM recently revised its costs for someone to stand on various positions. How many youth have that money? For example, if the Electoral Commission says for Member of Parliament, you pay 3 million. How many youth today have that money? Second, let's look at how we've commercialized our politics. To stand for a member of parliament, you must have your 500 million somewhere. How many youth have this money? Now, let's look at how many in parliament are under 30 years in parliament of Uganda today. Now, why these youth will not come and vote, but may be active during the process? Many are idle. You're calling them Ferrari, Honorable Chiraba, Abaise, have brought Eddie Kenzo, have brought maybe Juliana Kanyomozi.
Artists that incite
artists,
them.
there is water, there is food, there is some booze. So these youth are going to come at my rally. Some of them, I'm paying them to drive around, have posters.
That won't essentially.
But they won't vote because they don't identify with me.
Right. With that being said, what I'm picking from this conversation is that civic education should be profoundly invested in. If we are to change the narrative of who we vote into parliament, if we are to change the narrative of who we vote into places of leadership, civic education is pertinent. And if we are to learn how to vote, it's also important that civic education is invested in as we look forward to the general elections 2026. Now that marks it for today's conversation on The Real. It will continue on our social media platforms at UBC TV Uganda, the hashtag UBCGMU. Up next is Zakia Lucky with GMU Tourism Express.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Pick of the day on UBC.
He expected me to die like within the first 2 years.
Out of the blue, the child will get pains, especially in the wrists. And this happens commonly when children are starting to walk.
Was brought to you by. You can now get all the Chibuzi out with MTN voice bundles. Call all networks. Kubei Dondoro. Buy a 25-minute voice bundle for only 1,000. Or buy any daily voice bundle of your choice. Dial *100 *21# and select daily or use the My MTN app. When we talk together, we are unstoppable.
Buza Kamiso now, enhancing tax education and bringing it closer to the taxpayers. Many Ugandans have questions about the taxes they pay to URA.
When we come at revenue, they tell us to clear Chitenge at 10,000. And when we are selling Chitenge, we sell it at 17. So we don't know whether we are working or not.
Understanding your tax obligations can help you grow your business and avoid unnecessary losses. Now, you can get direct answers. Send your tax-related questions via WhatsApp or SMS to 0790-141-887 and the Commissioner General of URA, John Musinguzi, will personally address them. Tune in to UBC News Tonight every Monday and Wednesday for expert insights and clear explanations. Buza Commissioner.
In a nation hungry for truth, a world where every story matters, there exists a beacon of trust and reliability. For decades, they've been our voice and our window to the world, holding the mirror of our history. With 4 TV stations and 11 radio channels spanning 27 languages, they stand as guardians of information, defenders of truth. With Mascari Heritage Advantage, they uphold every citizen's right to reliable and free information. Their archived stories shaped our past and illuminate our present. Yet now, as new challenges arise and the world evolves, their mission faces its greatest test yet. Be part of our journey and let's navigate the unknown, uncover the untold, and safeguard our future together. Tune into your public broadcaster, for it is the intersection of trust and truth. Because to UBC, your story, and every voice matters. UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Always take part in electing who your leader is. Don't miss out on voting because it's crucial and your vote does matter. Well, good morning and thank you for sticking around on UBC. My name is Zakia Lucky and we are on Good Morning Uganda. Well, in regards to sports tourism, the Virunga Marathon is just a few days coming in. But we also have the Ginger City Marathon that will be happening on the 24th of May. And the cause is maternal healthcare services. So join thousands of these people and take part in running for this cause. In regards to our Uganda Tourism Board, which is a government agency that is mandated for destination marketing and quality assurance for tourism facilities in Uganda. We have the newly appointed CEO of the Uganda Tourism Board, who is Madame Juliana Kagwa. Congratulations, and seems the tourism sector is very excited to have you as their newly appointed CEO. Well, this morning we are going to be discussing the Pearl of Africa Tourism Expo. It's been happening. We've been counting down. Yesterday it did start. And most of you got to see what was happening on day one, and that was yesterday. We are still taking you through to today, what will be happening. And let's get to discuss it even further, especially that I do have a guest with me this morning on set, who is the visionary CEO of Hawk's Eye Lodge, located in Kabale district, and he goes by the names of Mr. Twino Mujuni Parity. Good morning.
Good morning, Zakia.
Yes, we are happy to have you this morning.
Happy to have you too here.
Yes,
I'm very grateful that I'm here.
Oh yes, thank you so much for joining us this morning. How did you find Powate yesterday?
Oh, it had a nice beginning. We always look forward to Powate. We always look forward to the opportunities that brings to us. It's the biggest event for tourism in Uganda, and it's always exciting, and that's how it started yesterday.
Amazing. That already sounds great because we did get to see that it's colorful. I saw models coming in, showcasing. Artists were there. The Prime Minister herself was also there. And there were great messages that are being shared. And today also we'll still have a lot of key stakeholders trying to share what will be happening in the industry. Personally, I'm looking forward to even learn from Amos Wekesa. I'm told he'll be presenting today. Well, what has inspired Hawk's Eye in taking part in activities like this?
I think we need first trace Powate from when it started. We were just coming from the COVID pandemic, which had affected most of the businesses. And so when it came in place, it was an opportunity for businesses to recover. It was an opportunity to network and show new casings from most of our businesses to the outside world. So Powate provides that avenue where you are able to meet business-to-business partners or business-to-customer partners. And this is one of the things that inspires us who have businesses that are still growing to participate in, and usually it is value for money.
And as a lodge operator, what are some of the unique benefits that you have gotten from exhibiting, for example, at Powate?
One, it provides an opportunity to link up with both international and local participants. So you get to have a potential market that is a little bigger. So you get to get customers, and it's usually a trend that after Powate you have actually a little spike in bookings and inquiries. The other is that you benchmark with businesses that offer what you offer. So for example, simple things like when you look at the Selena store, then you can actually see just how the bed is presented, how food is presented, which utensils they use. So you get to benchmark with similar businesses, you get to benchmark with lodges that are coming to the market, you get to meet your previous customers, and so you get feedback immediately. People tell you what your lodge, this is the experience that we got. You get to look at what people are doing, what new things are people doing, which technologies have been adopted, or which technologies are being showcased. So you get to have your business get the exposure that you wouldn't get if you don't participate.
And I saw someone share a tip of don't forget your business cards as you go to an event like this one. And I'm wondering, how does Powate support the visibility and marketing of accommodation facilities like yours at local and both and international markets?
This depends certainly on how the quality, for example, of the materials they exhibit, and a few things like, because some of us are not good, for example, at picking brochures and cards and moving out with them. But when there is a QR code, someone is able to scan and then get all the information, and maybe also for future reference. So there are some few things that we still lack, which I saw, most especially integrating technology into these expos, which I think UTB or the ministry need to focus on for the future. And I've also seen some of the technologies that we have not taken up, like virtual reality, augmented reality, and how it impacts the tourism sector, artificial intelligence. I haven't seen many people for example, exhibit solutions that are linked to artificial intelligence and how they affect our industry and how we can move forward on them. So some of the things we still lack on them, but again, when you find that you lack something this year, then next year it's possible that you can reveal it. For example, also like virtual reality, I think I saw someone exhibiting the sets, but when you look at the content, they are exhibiting the sets, but they don't have the content. So it's again a challenge for the Ministry of Tourism and also UTB that we actually need content that help us implement some of these technologies like virtual reality. So that, for example, at this Powate, one would have expected maybe a booth where you can have 3/4 of what we show as Uganda, someone immersed in it using the virtual reality, augmented reality headsets. This, I didn't see it, but possibly it is something that we need to focus on for the next Powate. We need to develop content that can easily sell, even for someone who just comes to visit our Powate Expo.
I think I did see one of the virtual reality, someone showcasing it at the museum booth. Yes, and we did see the Prime Minister try it out. But then how receptive are the people, especially for you that has been in the industry, to expos like this and establishing less marketed events and opportunities?
I think the first thing we look at is learning, because some of these things, not many people are exposed to them. Not many people are exposed to these platforms, most especially us who offer. Because if, for example, I offer accommodation in Kabale, most of us have not looked at integrating, say, virtual reality or artificial intelligence in our systems, both for marketing and also for getting outside to the market. So some of these things, when we get more and more of Ugandans with these technologies to also exhibit and get the market which is ready. Because, for example, if you had a system where I can install, say, virtual visits at Hawk's Eye Lodge, and maybe it's easier to purchase and possibly, because content is the biggest cost, so a small lodge will not put money into developing content, but a government can put money into developing content. UTB can put money into developing content. Which content you can actually make as business, which content you can sell to hotels. So there are some of these things that we again need to look at, so that it's not just looking at these platforms for games, because I think what we saw being sold more was games. But if we were selling destinations, for example, I'll give you, we get many visitors who are unable to visit, for example, Gindi for gorilla tracking. But if they can immerse themselves into gorilla tracking within the lodge, pay minimum maybe $50 or $30 for 1 hour visit to one of the gorilla groups, the message moves up, or sometimes you excite someone to actually spend in the future, because some people actually don't spend because they are not looking so much at the value. But for example, if I've seen something using a virtual glass or something like that, then it is easy for me to say, now I want a real experience. So we need to look at some of these things as marketing platforms and not necessarily as costs.
That is a good homework for us to take in, especially most people tell you when you visit a certain place you need to spend, but what is there to spend on? That is very nice. And what are some of the partnerships or the relations and networks you have formed in events like this?
Yeah, one, you get to meet the international partners, so it opens us up to the international market. You get to meet people from Spain, from Germany, without necessarily going to their countries, most especially when it has been a cost. So the government is actually bringing these people to us. Then two, you get to access other, for example, for us lodges, you get to access a bigger number of tour operators. So it's easier to market to them, person to person. Then the other, you get to exhibit your new offerings. For example, ecotourism. What are the new things we are offering? For example, in Bunyonyi, we've just launched the museums in Kawale. How are we marketing these museums? These are additional offerings that we have. What new things are we doing on the lake? So we got to expose our offerings so that people don't look at us as lodges that offer only beds, but as lodges that offer an experience to our customers. So this is quite a wonderful opportunity.
And there is someone watching you that is maybe different from doing something different from what you do as a lodge operator, and they would love to see the use of coming and also exhibit at Powate. What is it that you have to share with them to give them the urge to feel like they need the same space?
Yeah, one, there is real value for money when you exhibit in Powate. If you look, for example, if you wanted to advertise a lodge to your customers, you are going to pay maybe 2 million or 3 million for a 1 minute or 2 minute clip. But here you have a whole booth with all your market in one place. You have your entire market in one place. You have your suppliers, you have your, because there is also the supply side. You have the suppliers of linen, the suppliers of food, the different people who have innovated agritourism. You have new products. How will you see all of these if you don't participate in such sessions? You have networking. You get to network with financials. You get to see what is the newest financing options in the market. You get also to learn who is that person looking to invest with you. In Uganda, we always have this problem where we have small businesses all over. But you get to have someone who wants, for example, an established lodge that has a history where they can invest money. And these people are actually there in Mnyonyo. They are there. They don't want to risk their money without first seeing the history of a business. So they actually exist. And some of these things you can get to them when you visit Powate. Sometimes just knowledge, having knowledge about how the industry is moving. For example, in the conferences, the workshops that we are having, you get to have new knowledge about how the industry is running. You get to have new opportunities that government is offering. If the government is saying we want to multiply the economy by 10 by 100 in the next 10 years, so what are they offering to push for example, tourism to have revenues that have multiplied by 10 or by 100 in the next 10 years? What is it they are offering? And then how do you tap into these opportunities? You don't get to have the person-to-person discussion unless you're actually part of these networking sessions.
You started with saying there's value for the money that you have invested. And how do you measure the return on investment when you into opportunities
When
like
you
this?
have our experience, I don't think I can give you exact figures, but in our experience, usually after Poate, you have a spike in inquiries. Even right now, I have people asking emails, please give us your offers. So you get that, and that can translate maybe in an increase of 30 to 40% or 50%, depending again on what you offer. Because sometimes you can come to Poate, but your materials don't attract, they're not attractive. But if they're attractive, then you actually have an increase in customer inquiries. Sometimes you have an increase in people just coming to share with you. Then the other is the knowledge. If, for example, you go and identify technology that can help you reach customers faster, then that is also, it's not easily measurable, but certainly it increases your return. So you have an increase in income, you have an increase in knowledge, you have better perception from the customers once you participate.
And how do you see Hawk's Eye engaging or evolving in the engagement of future expos?
What we export is a service, and this is something we will continue doing. We want to open, most especially regional markets. We've seen Ugandans, the domestic market that we had developed immediately after COVID, we see this domestic market going more into the regional businesses. So we have more people going to Mombasa, going to Zanzibar, but we have few people coming to Uganda from Kenya and Tanzania. And this is what I think for me, I pick from this Poate, that I need to focus on the regional markets.
That is indeed amazing, and I'm wondering what could be your closing remarks for anyone that wants or looks up
Closing
to
remarks, we are still in Munyonyo. Come and see what we offer. Come and see what other organizations are offering, the tour companies, the international businesses. Come with a business card, come with a QR code, come with an anticipation, and then get inspired to develop Uganda in tourism.
Interesting. If you haven't reached Speak Resort, make it a point to pass by. You've heard what's there from Parity, and thank you, by the way, for sharing this knowledge with us. We are still on Good Morning Uganda. Coming in is Julie Nantaba Musisi with the business segment.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Buza Commissioner, enhancing tax education and bringing it closer to the taxpayers. Many Ugandans have questions about the taxes they pay to URA.
When we come at revenue, they tell us to clear Chitenge at 10,000. And when we are selling Chitenge, we sell it at 17. So we don't know whether we are working or not.
Understanding your tax obligations can help you grow your business and avoid unnecessary losses. Now, you can get direct answers. Send your tax-related questions via WhatsApp or SMS to 0790-141-887, and the Commissioner General of URA, John Musinguzi, will personally address them. Tune in to UBC News Tonight every Monday and Wednesday for expert insights and clear explanations. Buza Commissioner.
The government's core mandate is to maintain law and order, safeguard citizens' rights, and provide essential public services.
Remember, one of the pillars of a roadmap is innovation and entrepreneurship.
There has been this question of how are you protecting our indigenous seed?
It's going to be a tall project. That answers somebody's question.
For the past 20 weeks, the Front Bench has brought you insightful discussions on governance, security, healthcare, justice, and commerce.
When you go through this complicated procedure, involve the lawyers, you bring the case against him, the judge will hear you out and pass judgment, and you're out of court in record time.
We remain committed to keeping you informed and engaged on key national matters.
So these are huge, these are powerful organizations which now Uganda chairs. Why don't you come together?
If we haven't migrated to the e-card because of various reasons, including that not all the people of Uganda have smartphones.
You can sit in your house, apply for a passport.
If you have a Ugandan who has a successful logistics firm in the US, it means he can come to Uganda and do a lot more.
Now airing every Monday at 8:30 p.m. with me, Jethro Kasaiji, your interface with the government only on your public broadcaster, UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Welcome back from GMU Tourism Express. Time for GMU Business. My name is Julie Nantaba Mosisi, and we are starting off with matters YY coaches. The management of the YY coaches has requested the Ministry of Works and Transport to permit buses that have already undergone inspection to resume operations in order to support business sustainability. Now, they have likened the ongoing suspension to a third lockdown, which has affected at least 400 workers. The ministry suspended YY's operations following a series of accidents involving the company's buses. On May 16, 2025, the Ministry of Works and Transport suspended the operations of YY buses and ordered a mandatory inspection of all buses. This inspection is being carried out by the ministry in collaboration with the Police Directorate of Traffic and Road Safety under the Department of Vehicle Inspection. The police have urged the government to expedite the mandatory inspection process for all vehicles, noting that dangerous mechanical conditions, that is DMCs, are a major contributor to road crashes in Uganda. Meanwhile, YY Buses management has appealed to the government to allow vehicles that have already passed inspection to resume operations. However, both the ministry and police insist that bus operators must establish a robust system for regular checking and the regular checking of their vehicles before putting them on the road, as the current situation poses a serious risk to public safety. Now, staying with matters transport, but this time air transport, the Uganda Airlines direct flights from London Gatwick to Entebbe have been met with enthusiasm from UK-based passengers who hailed the new route as a long overdue connection between the two nations. Our reporters spoke with travelers at Gatwick Airport as they boarded the return flight, many of whom expressed joy at the convenience of flying home without layovers. Several passengers thanked the Ugandan government for facilitating the launch of this direct service, describing it as a significant step in strengthening ties between Uganda and its diaspora. Now let us look at matters coffee. Government officials have officially flagged off Uganda's first large-scale shipment of ready-to-drink coffee products to the Republic of Serbia. This milestone marks as a significant step in Uganda's effort to add value to its coffee industry and access premium international markets. The 75-ton coffee consignment was flagged off by the Minister of Science and Technology, Dr. Monica Musenero, and included remarks from key partners such as PASAID, Ministry of Trade and Industrial Development, UGO, Vich CMC Limited, and local coffee roasting collaborator Great Lakes Coffee Company Limited. This marks Uganda's first large-scale shipment of roasted and ready-to-drink coffee, which are, that is coffee products, which are projected to earn Uganda greater export value compared to when its green bean form was in place. Now, the Presidential Advisory Committee on Exports and Industrial Development and its partners are implementing a 6-pillar strategy in the coffee export value chain to address bottlenecks that often limit Uganda's coffee subsector on competing with international standards. This shipment is expected to reach Serbia in less than 3 weeks by both road and ship freighting, and the goal is to sustain and grow this export market opportunity on a monthly routine, with plans of penetrating other markets in the long run with Uganda's roasted ready-to-drink coffee. All right, now let's have a look at what is on the forex scene with the forex rates. And as of May 21st, 2025, the dollar was buying at 3,649.41 and selling at 3,659.41. And by midday, it was buying at 3,648.86 and selling at 3,658.86. Closed in at 3,648.18, dropped tremendously there, and selling at 3,658.18. The British pound was buying at 4,910.81 and was selling at 4,924.27. And the euro was buying at 4,138.41 and selling at 4,149.83. The Kenyan shilling was buying at 28.21 and selling at 28.29. The Tanzanian shilling was buying at 1.35 and selling at 1.35. And the South African rand was buying at 203.36 and selling at 203.92. Well, that's it from GMU Business today. Up next is the agenda, and we're talking matters, the budget 2025-2026. Stay tuned.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Pick of the day on UBC.
He expected me to die like within the first 2 years.
Out of the blue, the child will get pains, especially in the wrists. And this happens commonly when children are starting to walk.
Was brought to you by. You can now get all the Chibuzi out with MTN voice bundles. Call all networks. Kubei Dondoro. Buy a 25-minute voice bundle for only 1,000 or buy any daily voice bundle of your choice. Dial *100*21# and select daily or use the MyMTN app. When we talk together, we are unstoppable.
Buza Kamiso now, enhancing tax education and bringing it closer to the taxpayers. Many Ugandans have questions about the taxes they pay to URA.
When we come at revenue, they tell us to clear chitenge at 10,000. And when we are selling chitenge, we sell it at 17. So we don't know whether we are working or not.
Understanding your tax obligations can help you grow your business and avoid unnecessary losses. Now, you can get direct answers. Send your tax-related questions via WhatsApp or SMS to 0790-141-887, and the Commissioner General of URA, John Musinguzi, will personally address them. Tune in to UBC News Tonight every Monday and Wednesday for expert insights and clear explanations. Buza Commissioner.
The government's commandate is to maintain law and order, safeguard citizens' rights, and provide essential public services.
Remember, one of the pillars of a roadmap is innovation and entrepreneurship.
There has been this question of how are you protecting our indigenous seed?
It's going to be a tall project that answers somebody's question.
For the past 20 weeks, the front bench has brought you insightful discussions on governance, security, healthcare, justice, and commerce.
When you go through this complicated procedure, involve the lawyers, you bring the case against him, the judge will hear you out and pass judgment, and you're out of court in record time.
We remain committed to keeping you informed and engaged on key national matters.
So these are huge, these are powerful organizations which now Uganda chairs. Why don't you come together?
If we haven't migrated to the e-card because of various reasons, including that not all the people of Uganda have smartphones.
You can sit in your house, apply for a passport.
If you have a Ugandan who has a successful logistics firm in the US, it means he can come to Uganda and do a lot more.
Now airing every Monday at 8:30 p.m. with me, Jethro Kasaiji, your interface with the government only on your public broadcaster. UBC, inspiring Uganda.
In a nation hungry for truth, a world where every story matters, there exists a beacon of trust and reliability. For decades, they've been our voice and our window to the world, holding the mirror of our history. With 4 TV stations and 11 radio channels spanning 27 languages, they stand as guardians of information, defenders of truth. With Mascari Heritage Advantage, they uphold every citizen's right to reliable and free information. Their archived stories shaped our past and illuminate our present. Yet now, as new challenges arise and the world evolves, their mission faces its greatest test yet. Be part of our journey and let's navigate the unknown, uncover the untold, and safeguard our future together. Tune into your public broadcaster, for it is the intersection of trust and truth. Because to UBC, your story, and every voice matters. UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Juko. Yo. Wachiko. Check the shopping, man. What's your secret?
Uganda, haven't you heard of the parish development model PDM?
Yes, I did, but I thought it was just a talk.
No, Sebatia. It is real. I and a few friends together formed a circle, accessed money from the PDM, invested in a portrait project, and now things are moving.
Juko. I thought I was one of your friends.
You are.
But you left me behind.
I didn't leave you in poverty. But what you do, just visit your LC2 chairperson and your parish chief and start the process of economic transformation. Just like that.
Okay.
The parish development model is an initiative from the government of Uganda through the Ministry of Local Government designed to transform all lives of Ugandans for the better. PDM, my parish, my development, my life.
We're going to be talking about farming, but it's not me that's going to do that.
My name is Hava K. Luanga.
My name is Larry Charles K.
Let's go!
Mixed farm is a type of farming that involves growing crops and raising livestock. This is the spice garden and for the vegetables.
My first favorite spice has to be black pepper.
What's black pepper in Uganda?
Kamulali or mudagavu.
What? We're going to talk about the sechunga. We're going to see how big it is, as big as Larry's head. And then we're going to talk about the mangada. So we're going to get there. We have still so many farms to visit, and I would like to hear from you. This is the Little Farmer Show, and we are bringing coolness back to farming. See you!
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning, Uganda. Time for the agenda, where we get to engage in a discussion with an expert at that. And today is an interesting one. but as well one that is always that we get to talk about, and that is the budget. The National Budget 2025-2026 is the conversation we are having. Now, last week, the Ugandan budget was raised to 72 trillion Uganda shillings, having come from 71.1 trillion Uganda shillings as of March 2025. And this raise to 72 trillion Uganda shillings was due to some of the pertinent and unfunded priorities identified by members of parliament that the Ministry of Finance thought should be allocated in the 2025-2026 national budget. This brings it to 4 times of raising the national budget of the year 2025-2026. Now, as we look forward to 12th June, when it shall be read, when we expect it to be read, talking about it is one thing that we can't stop doing. And today we are in particular looking at the trade and investment opportunities that come along with the national budget 2025-2026. Now, in studio with me is Mr. Eric Odongo. He's an economist and he is from the Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group, CS-BAC, to talk with us into that matter. Good morning, Mr. Odongo.
Good morning, Julie. I'm very glad to be here.
Right.
And to speak about a pertinent issue, and that's our budget. It's a very good opportunity for me. Thank you.
Right. Now, to be on the show, 0709-602-592. That is a WhatsApp number to which you can engage, ask questions, and also share your ideas and your contributions to the show. And Mr. Eric Odong, let's start with this particular one. In terms of trade and investment, briefly highlight what stands out for you in the national budget 2025-26.
Thank you so much. I'm very glad for that question. I would like to go back a little bit to provide context to the budget so that we see what informs the figures in it right now.
Right.
So we have a national development plan which has been approved. Now, in that plan, we have our aspirations as a country that by 2040, this is where we have to be. Now, in those aspirations, we have captured the most important of all, and that is growing our economy 10 times from where it is right now. Right now, we are at around $50 billion. We want by 2040, we are at $500 billion. How do we get there? We have identified 3 key areas: agro-industrialization, tourism development, and mineral-based development as our ways of getting there. With those areas, our budgeting is going to move along those areas. Now, in the current budget, it happens to be the first of the 15 that we have to reach our goal. This is the first one of 2025-2026. In this budget, the normal budget process has been followed. Consultations have been made starting from last year. In September of last year, the Minister of Finance communicated to us the budget strategy for this year. And he enumerated a lot of things and what government was going to do in this budget that we have seen. The first budget framework paper was released. It had a budget of around 57 trillion. Then it increased in the second BCC to around 67 trillion. And now, like you have rightly put, we are at 72 trillion. So that is where we have come from in terms of context. Now, from what is there right now, the discussion has been, if we are prioritizing those areas, how much are we putting there? So, my interest, or the interest of any rational Ugandan would be, if we have said we want to reach $500 billion through agro-industrialization, so how much have we put there? If we want to reach $500 billion through tourism, how much have we put there? How much have we put to mineral development? We have oil that we are really banking on. So those are the standout issues for me in this current budget.
That's very profound, and thank you so much for that brief background for context sake. Hopefully you've been educated and given a picture of what it means and what the budget, national budget 2025-26 means, and why you should be interested. Now, 0709602592 is the WhatsApp number to which you should engage and ask questions or share what is on your mind regarding this very pertinent topic. We are looking at the budget 2025-26, and in particular, the trade and investment opportunities that are coming along with it. Now, Mr. Odongo, from a civil society's perspective, how well does this budget align with Uganda's economic priorities and Vision 2040, in your perspective, from a civil society?
From a civil society perspective, to answer the question of alignment directly, I would say this budget is aligned to those priorities. And it has always been aligned, by the way. Our problem comes in the execution of the budget, how we raise the revenue to finance, because you can see a budget is just an estimate, simply an estimate. Now, beyond estimating, the actual work is in realizing. So there are two sides. You have the revenue side and the expenditure side. If you fail to raise revenue, then you have nothing to finance your good priorities, whether they are aligned or not. If you fail to raise revenue, then you will have a challenge there. Now, in revenue mobilization, we're a bit challenged, and that is where I have a small issue with this budget. We seem not to achieve what we are forecasting in terms of domestic revenue mobilization. You realize we have never hit 30 trillion in terms of local revenue, but in the current budget, we are above 35 in our forecast. If we have never reached 30, why are we thinking that we shall reach 37? So that is where I'm a bit concerned, that if we fail to reach 37, then we have to now compensate through other ways, and that is domestic borrowing mainly. And that is, again, from an economist perspective, it is just endangering what gains we are trying to make through other allocations we have put in the budget. So, as the civil society, we see that the budget is aligned, but concerns always come in following the budget as we have set it.
Right. And that brings me to a question. What is the civil society and even the private sector, what role do you think is played in monitoring and contributing to the budget? You've mentioned there that the issue there is with execution. If we forecast to 35 and have failed to collect 30, what makes us think that we'll even reach that 37? So what role do you think civil society and the private sector are playing or should play in monitoring and contributing to the budget?
Civil society, it is mainly to keep government on track. You see, it is very important that accountability is at the forefront in everything that we do. So that is where civil society comes. Because civil society will always ask government questions. You said you're going to do this, but you have done otherwise. Then the private sector, its main role is in tax compliance. The budget is an aspiration. So in the private sector, government is hoping that it is going to collect taxes. But if the private sector is not able to provide government with the taxes it requires, then it will be difficult to achieve this budget. However, there are also interventions which the private sector undertakes independently, but contribute towards the realization of our economic objectives as a country. So for the private sector, mainly it is tax compliance, but also holding government accountable. You see, it is not good for private sector to think that for us, our work is to just pay taxes. We do not mind what happens.
Right.
So you might wake up when you now need some infrastructure provided by government, and it is not there at that moment. And that is when you realize that now we need to wake up. So even private sector, they need to adequately engage with government, because they are the ones who really understand where opportunities are. They are the ones who are pursuing these opportunities.
Right.
And yet government is saying, we want Ugandans to prosper. Private sector-led growth. So if it is private sector-led growth, then the private sector should indeed be leading. And that is why it is important that spaces should be increased for government to interact with the private sector. Because when government interacts with the private sector, you are able to address any issues which are affecting the other side.
Right. And speaking on matters accountability and transparency, how best, what measures should be put in place to ensure accountability and transparency as we look forward to the national budget of the year 2025-2026 in resource allocation?
I think the most important for me is the tax expenditure. You see, when citizens see that the taxes they pay are not being used properly, rationally in their minds, they find it difficult to pay again.
Right.
So just like you pay pay as you earn tax.
Yeah.
Now, if you're paying pay as you earn, and every time you come and work here, you go back, they have broken into your house, they have removed everything, you came here, you failed to reach maybe on time, you have transportation challenges. So all those issues, when a taxpayer is not able to really rationalize their contribution against the benefit they are deriving from government,
yes,
then it becomes difficult. So that is the key issue in accountability. Then these funds that we borrow, that is another area where we need to pay attention to, because we are borrowing now, but the people who are going to pay are those who are coming after us. We are borrowing long term. So we need to really be very, very cautious with the all public resources. Generally, all public resources require accountability. So for every Ugandan, including the public official, there should be that concern that what is the public getting out of this? Because tomorrow you are in public office, then the next day you're a normal citizen.
That's
now,
true.
at that point, you need to get the same benefits that you have been providing to citizens.
That's very true. And indeed, the question actually does continue with the citizens and every civilian as they pay taxes. They pay, but they always wonder what exactly is the taxes we're paying doing as they try to access services here and there. Now, we are talking about trade and investment opportunities with the national budget 2025-26, which is expected to be read on the 12th of June. And it was raised and approved at that to 72 trillion Uganda shillings. And we're looking at the different opportunities here and there through the lens of trade and investment opportunities. Coming back to you, Mr. Eric, or by the way, Mr. Eric Odongo is our guest in studio. He's the expert that we are talking to, and he is an economist coming from CS Bank. So feel free to engage and ask questions that you have in regards to that. Coming back to you, Mr. Odongo, what sectors do you, have received the most investment to promote trade and investment, especially looking at encouraging investors, but also looking at the local and foreign scene?
You see, through the budget, government is trying to encourage investment in those areas which I've mentioned: agro-industrialization, tourism, mineral development, as priority areas for it to achieve its goals. Now, when you think from the government perspective, government makes sure that whatever is needed to catalyze investment, for example, in agro-industrialization, then that is put in place so that now the private sector will go and invest in agro-industrialization initiatives, because government cannot go and begin setting up every processing plant all over the country. So investment in those areas will, on the government side, covers aspects like roads, railway, and you can see in the current budget, in its form, they have enlisted investments in railway, investments in roads. Just this week we have seen a new route of a direct flight from Uganda to London.
Right.
So those are all initiatives which are going to catalyze investment through this budget. We have also seen investment in industrial parks. That is a very, very important issue, because we are trying to make the industrial parks attractive for investors to go there. No investor will go to a park which has no electricity, which has no running water. So government has to make sure that those things are functioning in the industrial park, and someone goes there to set up an investment and eventually create jobs. So there are lines in the budget. If you look at it critically, there's money for Uganda Investment Authority to undertake development in the parks. There's also money to extend electricity to these parks. So those are investments which government is making in its effort to promote overall economic investment in the country.
Right. And let's have focus through the lens on the focus of infrastructure investment.
Yes.
What are those infrastructure investments that have been prioritized in this year's national budget?
The most that stands out for me is railway. Railway is long overdue, so we are really hoping that within this year the railway will be complete. Then there are also investments in roads. Then there are also investments in air transport. The Kabale Airport probably will be complete within the next year.
Right.
So all those are standout investments for me, which I'm hoping that will catalyze investment in Uganda.
Right. Coming to your comments on 0709602. Good morning. I want to ask him that what if someone doesn't have a smartphone? How will this person access the QR code? In what sense do you mean? Paul from Allure Kingdom. Please clarify on the question so that we are able to answer it clearly. But we are talking about trade and investment opportunities in regards to the national budget 2025-2026. And we are with Mr. Eric Odongo. He is an economist, and he comes from the Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group, CS BAG, and he is the expert this morning speaking into the matter. Now, Mr. Eric Odongo, let's look at what we see in this budget and how attractive it is to Uganda's investment.
For an investor out there, this budget is a good indicator of government's commitment to drive investment in Uganda. If you look at the investment offers that are there for someone to set up maybe an investment in a rural area, at least you can see that government has tried to extend critical infrastructure. For example, road network, water, electricity, and even internet connection. Internet connection is a very, very important enabler of investment. So we see in this budget there are investments going into ICT. So from an independent point of view, it's a budget which I look at with huge optimism that it can really contribute to our investment agenda.
All right. Let's look at the barriers, especially in regional and international trade. What does this budget address in regards to barriers?
In regards to barriers, we have seen allocations going to trade missions, development. You see the global economy is now evolving. People are moving towards protectionism because of how the global powers are behaving. So you find that a small country like Uganda would need to also play strategically in that space. So we see allocations going to foreign missions to go into negotiations, to look for new markets. That is very, very critical because it is these new markets which will enable us absorb whatever we are producing as a country. So I see good spirit in the budget to address those issues. Then there are other global supply shocks, which for me, as a country, we are not well cushioned, but at least in terms of preparation, we have tried to put in place preparatory measures. Most of our trade, as you know, we are mainly exporting to African countries. So within here, you can see our neighbors in Congo are not having peace there. South Sudan is having a problem. So Uganda would need to really find a way of exploring alternative markets, and issues like regional integration are very, very important for us. That is why you see whenever you hear the president talk about East Africa, COMESA, those are avenues where you can negotiate to provide a market for your output.
Right. Now somebody comes through via WhatsApp and says, I'm Nico Bright from Kaberamaido. Is corruption also indicated in that budget because it's normal? How would you answer, Nico from Kaberamaido?
Nico, corruption is not normal. That is what you need to change in your mind. Corruption is not normal, and mainly corruption will continue if you have that mindset that it is normal. So as citizens, we need to always speak out whenever we see that something has gone wrong. But I don't want to fault Nico. The government side has a lot to do to change public perception about corruption, because indeed it is true that there is corruption. Even government agencies that are responsible to fight corruption have highlighted to us that this is the magnitude of the problem. And from a citizen's perspective, like Nico has observed, right, it is like a rallying call to all citizens that we need to do more in our fight against corruption, because corruption undermines the effectiveness of the budget. Because you know, if resources get lost in the budget, then you begin seeing agitation, you begin seeing now these supplementaries also come because someone has stolen salaries of maybe teachers, and now you need to pay the teachers. Then you have to go and borrow, you have to go and look for resources. So those are the dangers of corruption, which we need to really plug if we are to remain on course to our objectives.
Right. Let's look at business players. What is being done to reduce the cost of doing business in Uganda?
Government has put in a lot of initiatives. We have seen the electricity tariff. They have tried to bring it down. It is a good initiative. In terms of other infrastructure challenges, you have seen opening up of roads, especially in rural areas. Although we are still challenged because of climate change issues. So you find that tomorrow you do a road here and then the next day it is washed. But at least there is visible effort that promotion of trade and investment is being done, at least at every level. Because even if you went into a district as deep somewhere, you will see some power lines somewhere. So those are all enablers of trade and investment. We are, although concerned that some of these, the return which we are getting from them, it is not really there. So that is why you find people arguing that why do you put a road and yet that road is being used to dry cassava instead of transporting produce. So those are challenges now which we need to address, but at least the road is there. The road is there in the first place. So to answer your question, there are a number of measures in place. However, the environment of business is dynamic. So some of those issues are emerging. For the business community, that like I said previously, we need to provide that space where business and government are in the same room discussing, because some of those the issues which come up require immediate attention. So you may not say right now that everything is in place to facilitate trade and investment. No, there are other things which we need, which we know, and even some which we do not know right now. So that kind of space will help in addressing those issues as they emerge.
Right. Now let's look at inclusivity. How inclusive is this year's, the 2025-26 national budget, and how is it expected to benefit the ordinary Ugandan, especially youth and women?
Yes, for youth and women, we have seen in the budget that, for example, GROW, the funds under GROW, they are specifically meant to target women. Then you also see allocations to PDM. They also are meant to target the youth and also women. So there are interventions in the budget which are targeting the special interest groups. However, concerns are on coverage. If you give a parish that amount of money, how long will it take for everyone in that parish to benefit from such an intervention? You have seen also concerns on GROW. People are saying applications take long, and they take long to get the money. So by the time probably you get the money, the opportunity you wanted to exploit is now gone. So those are also issues. Then in public procurement, we have seen last year there were regulations released to at least ring fence some procurements for women and youth. So now it is on the side of citizens to follow up on the adherence to such interventions, because the budget will only remain a written document, but actual follow-up is now what requires your effort and my effort to make sure that whatever government has listed in the budget as a very good intervention is indeed followed to the letter.
Right. Very profound indeed. 0709-602-592. That is a WhatsApp number that you can engage and ask your question or share your opinion. We are looking at the trade and investment opportunities in the national budget 2025-2026. Now, Mr. Odongo, what role do you think local content creation is playing in Uganda's investment strategy?
For every huge investment in any country, there's a value chain. The local players are part of that value chain. I'll give you an example of Mukwano. You will see the huge investment of Mukwano. You have outgrowers there. So there's space for the local content creators. However, what we need now is to support them to go through these shocks that come up. For example, you have climate-related issues. You have a perennial issue of access to capital. Money in Uganda is still very expensive compared to other areas. So at strategic level, those are areas which you would have to look at in order for you to really get the full potential of these small content creators.
Right. Now let's also look at matters environment and the whole conversation of climate crisis change. How is this budget, how is it considering environmental concerns?
Yes, in the budget we are seeing allocations going to monitoring of environmental standards under NEMA, but also in our flagship project, which is really gathering attention, and that is the East African crude oil pipeline. We have seen interventions there to protect the environment. So the budget has put in place some of those interventions. However, the follow-up of the monitoring of those standards or the execution of our projects as a country, that is where we are going to really test ourselves. Are we concerned for the environment or not? Because largely environmental consciousness reduces to individual level. If an individual is concerned about the environment, they will not throw a plastic bottle in public without maybe putting it in a bin. They will not just discard Kavera anyhow. So that level of consciousness is, maybe for me, that is where we need to really do much, because it is very funny. You even see someone driving and they just throw something out of the car.
Yes.
So those small actions are the ones which aggregate and they really impact the environment. So the budget has those interventions in place, but when it comes to how we behave as individuals, that is where we get issues. There are also natural related climate issues. For example, you will hear there's a mudslide in Bududa, a river in Kasese has burst its banks. So we see that whereas there's the contingency element of the budget where you are providing that we don't know right now, but maybe in the rainy season which comes, a river in Kasese will burst its bank. So you provide resources to try to address that. Now, our challenge is there are some of these climate disasters which have become normal. By that I mean an aspect like Bududa. Every year we see mudslides happen in that region, but they still continue to claim life. So maybe we are not effective in relocation. We are not effective in getting alternatives for those people. We are not effective in even restoring the entire landscape there. You go to Kasese, every year a river will burst its banks and it will swallow someone. So what are we doing? Are we planting more trees there, or we have left it? That is an issue of now civil society. It is not a concern for the whole country. So whatever we are investing there, we provide for it in the budget, yes, but we need to follow up to see that those investments are really effective, so that what we put in last year, we do not need to replace it this year. It has to serve for a life of what we intend to do.
Right. Now, Priscilla from Bale comes through. Thank you so much for joining the show. Comes through and says, good morning, UBC JMU. My concern is that every time I hear a budget is being raised, I will be passed and will be passed, I get so worried. Because why are we raising the budget that you say is to meet certain aspects, and yet the country is having loans that are outstanding? That is a concern from Priscilla. Anything you want to say to her?
Yeah, Priscilla, a budget raising is not an issue. I want you to look at a budget like a national budget. Look at it like your own budget, as Priscilla. When you start off, you have your aspirations. I want to maybe build a house. I want to buy a car. So you set out to look for resources to do that. Now, when you, along the way, you realize new opportunities here and there, what you invested in, maybe your business, you could have said, let me put a side hustle somewhere. Now it is generating money now properly. So you now realize that your resource envelope has increased.
Yes.
So you find that even your expenditure, what you had considered as not achievable at that particular moment, you are now able to go and do that. So for me, the budget increasing is not necessarily a bad issue, but the issue is how is it increasing? Where is the money coming from? Because what you see is that if you are borrowing, a lot of your budget is financed through borrowing, then it is unsustainable compared to the other alternative of you mobilizing taxes. When Priscilla and I and you pay our taxes, then government will have more resources. So the budget can, ideally it means the budget has increased.
Yes.
So when you have now those resources, then we discuss on how you are deploying them. Because as we started, we talked about the failure to hit the 30 trillion mark in domestic revenue. So maybe in this coming budget, we experienced a miracle, and now we are at 40 trillion. So you do not expect our budget to remain where it is right now. When we have seen that, we have increased our collections.
Right. Thank you so much for being on the show. And the budget reading is expected to take place in June, that is on June 12th, 2025. And one thing that we implore you here at UBC as we continue to inspire you is pick keen interest. Pick keen interest in it, and make sure that whatever form of noise you make on social media, it's informed noise. And as a parting shot, Eric, what opportunities should Ugandans look out for in the upcoming national budget 2025-26?
There are opportunities in infrastructure, areas which are being extended the railway. Those areas have opportunities. You have these roads extend to rural areas for PDM. So if you can go into agriculture it is a good opportunity for you. Then there are also government procurements. We have seen a very, very significant issue in this budget, which is the allocation of 1 trillion towards clear and domestic areas. That is a game changer. So we are hopeful that those private entities which had supplied the government, when this 1 trillion goes to them, they will at least get liquidity to expand. So it's a very, very good intervention, because you see it increased from 200 to 1 trillion, which is a very, very good thing. Although we still continue to urge government that please pay up what you owe to the people who have supplied you, the Ugandans, because when you pay up, they will be able to pay their taxes, they will be able to generate jobs, they will be able to increase investment in the country. So opportunities are there in the budget. Let us all approach the budget with optimism, and most importantly, let us track this budget, because corruption is really, really a very serious issue. At personal level, purpose to scrutinize public expenditure. Where is it going? Is this planned? Is it not planned? Why are we spending on that? When you raise such consciousness as a citizen, then corruption will not affect a lot of our public services. So for me, as June 12th approaches, I'm very optimistic that this budget will take us somewhere in terms of our journey to the 500 billion. But let us all play our part. Don't just stop at paying taxes. Let us follow the taxes to make sure that they do the right thing. Thank you.
Right. With that parting shot, allow me also wish you a very good morning and a beautiful rest of the day. Good morning, Uganda.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.